obviously the segregation isn't a thing, and so you'll see that there are still like Caucasian people, Hispanic people, Asian people. They attend HBCUs as well. I would imagine the numbers are significantly lower for them, but even still, that they do attend. What is their reasoning typically for attending?
Well, unfortunately, I can't speak to what any individual's reasoning or rationale may be for that. Um, it could be any number of things. It could be just the quality of the programs. Um, the institution that I work at now is one that has a really, or has historically had a really, really strong pharmacy, nursing programs. I mean, it's really great, and you come here because you know you're going to get a real good education for that specific field. So, I mean, that's something that exists irrespective of your sort of racial background, irrespective of, some of the aspects of history that
Mm.
come with the historically Black college experience. So, I mean, that may be a reason for it. It may also be a reason for the fact that you just like the vibes. You mean you want to come here because you want to learn something. You want to be a good ally. You want to be somebody who is uh, immersed in a culture that you really can gain something from.
Mm.
And to be quite honest, I mean, there is very much a vibe here.
Yeah.
You look at a homecoming experience at an HBCU, and you look at one at a PWI, and it's a fundamentally different kind of beast.
Absolutely. You man, listen. Speaking of that, so I didn't go to an HBCU, and I went. Even in high school, I lived in a pretty Caucasian area, and so my
Mhm,
band experience and things like that were very Caucasian,
mhm,
to put it, pretty plainly. And so I think the first time I saw even what that idea was, that there could be a difference in the way that people conduct themselves within band and within the cheerleading and all of those things, I think was in the movie Drumline, actually, is where I saw some of
yeah.
like the way that the trumpets and things would move and dance and stuff as they're playing, and the brass section, the instruments, and just there was just a total different thing there that I still didn't associate this with HBCUs. It was just a thing. And
Mhm.
and then I can say it was Beyonce's Homecoming. When she did oh, what was it called? There's a very very big Coachella, and she
Mm,
had
yeah,
all of
yeah.
this production that was with like bands. It was like with a live band, brass and all of these things. And I saw that, and then was dating someone, actually engaged to someone, and she was explaining like how her mother, it was so important for her to get this HBCU experience and so on and so forth, and seeing that, and I started finding drawing this association of what that is, because it didn't click. I didn't understand how different and how cultural some of that stuff is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that that's one of the beautiful secrets. It's one of the things that if you don't know, you don't know, and you miss out on. You can go your whole life without ever stopping to think about what actually goes on at halftime
Hmm.
at an HBCU football game.
Right.
But if you do know, and you get a chance to go to it, you get a chance to experience, and you see that it is a show, it
Hmm.
is a performance, it is a truly experience.
Hmm.
And like that's one of the coolest things about this. And like I say again, like people go their whole lives without ever stopping to think about it. And it's not until we start making movies about it, until we start validating our own experiences, until we start appreciating the fact that we have a unique culture worth celebrating and recognizing and publicizing and shining a spotlight on also.
Hmm.
That's how people start to realize that, man, there must be something really special at these places. And it's not just a matter of, well, they couldn't get in anyplace else, so they just got to go to the black school or whatever, which is sometimes what I fear the thought process might be. But for some people outside of the Black community or whatever, even some people within the Black community might look at that. Folks who go to HBCUs like that as well. But it's we come here because it is something that is magical. We come here because it is something that is, I mean, in a very real way, it's kind of a space dedicated towards our cultural and historical experience.
Right.
And when we get to showcase that, it just, I mean, who wouldn't want to?
Yeah. So there's I mean, you had mentioned earlier that like your school had a particularly good nursing program and things
Mhm.
like that. So I think that is another myth sometimes, that people kind of have a perception that HBCUs have somewhat of an inferior standard. Is there any truth to that?
Well, from what I've seen, and I can only speak anecdotally, and so you take this with however big or small a grain of salt you care to. It does sometimes feel as though there is a kind of tacit kind of condescension towards our institutions from people external to them, where people don't know what we do. And because our stuff doesn't get recognized in the same way, because who would it benefit for our programs to get recognition or something like that, right? So I find that is a thing. That may also be why people, if they know anything about these institutions, it may be that they know about the band or step shows, or because they had that run of movies in the late aughts where it was Drumline and it was Stomp the Yard,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like these sorts of things, and that's kind of a storied tradition that goes back as far at least as School Days, the Spike Lee movie, and a Different World, the TV show. Right. There have been instances where people try to show what's going on at HBCUs. And when you present these things, you kind of have to show a balance of it. Do you show just the fun stuff? Do you show just the cultural experiences or stuff like that? Or do you try to show the education that we're trying to provide here also?
Right.
Because it's hard to make a movie about college where you just see people going to class.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily make for super entertaining storytelling, I suppose. Anybody can make anything happen, but I think it would be cool if somebody tried, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Listen, I'm even right. I can't imagine it being particularly entertaining, to be honest. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
there has to be some sort of drama. I mean, even you look at things like not American Pie, but in any of those old movies from the '90s, it's never about the education. It's whatever drama is external to the education. But
absolutely.
but yeah, there has to be that understanding, because I do think that there is that stigma attached to it, and I don't even know that the stigma is valid, But in fact, I don't believe it's valid. Um, but it seems like, yeah, that would be there. But I think some of that can just be, some sort of lingering, lingering, maybe not racism, but just lingering negative attitudes about blackness, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think speaking lastly to the band and the step shows and all of those things, I would say I think you're 100% right in that it is very much an experience, and I think black people in general, we're particularly colorful, and maybe I should use the word flamboyant, so that because I'm not talking about the race thing. It's just
Yeah.
culturally we've been so much more energetic, and just that's just kind of how we are. And so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you see it play out in band. You see it play out because, again, we were very stiff. We would play our
Hmm.
instruments, and it was just, you played, you stood there, you stepped to your place you needed to go, step, stand, play. There was never any of that kind of movement, or any of those things. And so I remember thinking, how are they playing? How do they stay in pitch? Doing that, because it's just not something practiced. It's a total different, again,
Sure.
experience. I think the music selection is entirely different. I think, man, it's insane to see people doing, um, you know, uh, Michael Jackson, and just playing certain songs that
Yeah. Yeah.
resonate. I've seen bands doing Maze, that's just a different thing. So
Hmm.
I, I I think it's something that I would have appreciated greatly had I actually attended one of those.
Escape and float into